This video is sponsored by Aquashine Exteriors, professional jet washing and cleaning services across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, including Dorset, Hampshire and Wiltshire. Are you feeling it's time to get that driveway nice and shiny for when you come home, or are you wanting to get that guttering tidied up and spotless again? They deliver this, plus much, much more. Please head into the description below where you'll find their details for their website, including the socials, Facebook and Instagram. You also need to find their before and after portfolio. You can also call them on 07503 998 088 for a free quotation. Don't wait till next week. Don't think you'll do it another day. Pick up the phone, give them a call, check them out.
Good evening, Cherries fans. Welcome to another matchday preview here on the Cherries Red Army YouTube channel. No Kirk this time. He's taking a well-deserved break. He's already on a holiday. He might be doing a bit of scouting work. If you follow him on Twitter, he's already ended up at Leicester Stadium this morning. I don't know why. He's maybe trying to break in somewhere. I have no idea. Only he knows what he plans to do on a daily basis. But for today, well, we've got to preview the match. We've got a very important six-pointer relegation dogfight battle over in Leicester, and we've got our regular contributor Matt to talk about it, and fan opposition Lee Chappie. Well, let's get on with the show.
Cheeky one, square, and
Welcome back to the show, Matt. How are you today? It's been a while since we've been on a preview together. How are you doing?
That's been a while, John. Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, I'm doing well. Looking forward to the weekend. Disappointing on Tuesday night. Need to bounce back quickly, but looking forward to having some good chat and debate on this show as usual, John.
Yes, speaking of another fan who will be disappointed from their midweek results.
You stole my words.
Chappie, how the devil are you?
Yeah, terrible. You?
Oh dear. Well, we'll get into those feelings as we go through the preview today. Well, I suppose if we're going to focus on Leicester for these first sort of 15, 20 minutes.
Do we really have to?
Yeah, I think that's what we brought you on for, Lee. Obviously, there's been a bit of upheaval, a bit of change as within the last week, as it were. As of yet, no permanent manager announced, but I'm sure that the club are doing their work. But how are you feeling now with Rodgers gone, and obviously a new man going to be coming in hopefully after the Bournemouth game?
Yeah, I think we will mention this on Beat the Drop on the Monday night as we're all on there bantering. I'm just happy that there's some sort of reset button that's hit. Rodgers, to be fair, has had I think it was 204 games in charge. I think he's I think it was 42.10 win rate as well, percentage-wise. So it's not too bad, actually. It's up there with like Martin O'Neill, who was one of the more I suppose, legendary managers that we had in the 90s. In fact, I think he's been linked to caretaking till the end of the season. I don't know how true that is. It's been reported a fair few times around, but he always gets name dropped when we're in the hunt for a new manager. It seems to be a thing with Leicester. We like to go back to the old managers like Pearson's name's been dropped millions of times, although he's obviously got a job himself. But I was a little bit more positive with Rodgers going. I thought we looked a little bit better against Villa than we did against Palace. My God, we were dreadful against Palace. So anything was a little bit better. Attacking wise, we looked a bit better. You know, we did build up a bit more play, but overall, yeah, again, individual performances just slightly let us down. You know, I thought Maddison was poor against Villa, but then again, he was put on the right side. He's probably one of the best cams in the league, considering where Leicester are in position. You wouldn't believe that, but he is probably one of the better cams in the league, and he's played out of position again. I'm not sure why. I suppose it was to do with going with Mendy and Ndidi. Maybe as you know, against Villas, they like to play two in the middle. So Madder's out of position. It wasn't great, and then Ndidi cocks up at the end. KDH gets sent off. It's just, football's bad, isn't it? When you're bad, the luck goes against you, doesn't it? It's just, that's the game. That's the nature of it.
Absolutely. Quick hello to everyone that is joining us live tonight. We've got Chris Hubble. Thanks for joining us again live. Mark Singleton. Hello. We've got AFCB Fan TV. Hello there. We've got Alan. Thanks again for joining us. Morgan. Hello. Thanks for coming along. Cameron. Hello. And anyone else that wants to say hi, please do put your messages in the chat. Matt, I don't think either of us would have expected to see Leicester in this position at this stage of the season. But I think that, you know, a combination of probably a stale squad, not much reinvestment, particularly in the summer, a manager that has seemingly got a sell-by date with any one club that he's at. Mm-hmm. I suppose it makes sense, but it's still surprising, isn't it, to see such a club that won the FA Cup 2 seasons ago down in this position.
Yeah, huge surprise. I mean, I wouldn't have called this one bit when the season began. But we've been here ourselves, John, haven't we? We have been here ourselves, Chappie, where we've had a manager in place for a good length of time, and there's a sell-by date always on all these managers in this day and age, and in football the way it is these days. You know, nothing lasts forever, and to keep these egos happy, to keep dressing rooms happy, and to keep players performing at the top level, and to keep a squad of 25 at the peak week in, week out is a challenge. And when the rug's being pulled from you a little bit, when you know business deals are being done, players are not being replaced, maybe, so your squad feels like it's being weakened as opposed to being strengthened, that's going to test even the best of managers and the best of football squads, isn't it? And when you get on that bad run, Chappie, it's momentum works both ways, doesn't it? You know, once you're on that bad roll, it's difficult to pull yourself out. Things start going against you. And I think that's what's happened with Leicester. I mean, I still think you'll get out of it. I still think you've got enough quality about you to get out of it. But the players have got to do that on the pitch for you. And at the moment, you know, that you've shown it in glimpses this year. You've had some great results against some of the so-called bigger teams, but at the moment, there does seem to be an underlying problem now. I don't know whether it's in terms of attitude, mentality, or what it is. But Brendan obviously did a great job for you. But he's lost his way, as Eddie did in his final season a little bit with us. Like I say, I touched on that a minute ago. And, it can happen to the best of us. But I do firmly believe that you'll get out of it. I must be honest. I think the relegation battle will go to the wire. But I don't see Leicester being one of the teams that have 3 or 4 that are sort of fighting on the final day, but we'll see.
Wow, more optimistic than me. I said on a tweet earlier, the Leicester way is to beat Man City and Liverpool, the biggest teams we've got to play, but lose to everyone else around us and still go down. I can imagine that's what's going to happen. But we've not performed all that well. I mean, there's the stats right in front, you can see. It was the same as well for Palace and for Villa. I think we just got beat in every stat going. I have put a lineup prediction actually for you if you do want to see that as well.
Yeah, once this is pushed through, we'll definitely show you full screen to bring that up. Do you see? Well, I suppose the difficulty is what with Keenan Jeffrey Hall getting sent off, he won't be available. Yeah. Are there many first teamers that are out at the moment with injury for you?
Yeah, obviously we had James Justin on that left side, who was doing phenomenal stuff, and unfortunately ACL has put him out. He come back and then he got injured again. Same thing was Ricardo Pereira. Obviously he done his ACL, got injured, come back, and he's still only a it's like a sub man at the minute, Ricardo. Yeah. So there's two crucial injuries left and right, which left us quite bare really, with only Luke Thomas at the left side. So we had to sign someone. So we signed Christensen. Then he gets injured as well. So he's only just come back. So it's been a nightmare for injuries. I know that's an excuse, but it has been a nightmare for the last 3 years. And I'm sick of using that as an excuse. But Brendan Rodgers clearly got something wrong with training. There must have been something going on with the medical staff, because we've never had this problem before Rodgers came in. I've never seen an injury like it. We didn't even get one injury during the season we won the Prem. Yeah. Yet James Maddison has been playing probably the last 18 months with something wrong with his hip. I could go on. Ndidi's been out. So we've and then just countless times. Johnny Evans, although he's aging now. Oh, it's one thing after another. And the squad we've got left with the red card and whatnot, I'll put on screens for you now. And this is what I've put together for the game. I think this is what's going to happen. I think Christensen will play left, and Castagne will play right, with Harry Sousa and a Fars in at centre-back, with Everson taking over Ward, because Ward has been abysmal in goal. That's another thing that's let us down over the season, was Kasper Schmeichel leaving at the start of the season. He was the man in the sticks. He was the captain. He was the man in the sticks. He was the wall. Without him, our back line just dropped as well. It's just, I don't know what's going on this season. In the middle, I think we're going to go again with Ndidi and Mendy in the middle again, because I don't see anything else. Yuri Tielemans is injured and probably out for the rest of the season. Hopefully, he'll get a couple more games in a Leicester shirt, but maybe not. Probably seen the last of Yuri Tielemans in a Leicester shirt. James Maddison hopefully drops into cam, because right mid didn't work, but that means we'll have to bring in someone on the right, which is going to be the Brazilian man that we've signed, who I don't rate one bit. I think he's weak. He doesn't like running back. I don't know. On the left, Harvey Bonds, who scored a phenomenal goal against Aston Villa. He can do that, to be fair to him. He is always a threat, but he's more of a threat when you've got Christensen behind him. If Christensen doesn't start behind Harvey Bonds disappears too. So you might as well take two players off that if Christensen doesn't start. And Daka will start up top for me. I think it should be Nacho. Nacho's been the man in the FA Cup. He's scored countless amount of times. Ridiculous stats actually in the FA Cup, but this is the Prem, and for some reason he doesn't get picked, and I think it will be Daka leading the line up top.
So that's your predicted lineup there. Now, obviously, in the previous fixture between the two sides, I think you're probably in not too dissimilar a position, because it was relatively early on in the season where you were also having, Leicester struggle started first thing when you went a number of games without a victory at the start of the season, if I remember correctly, or at least with very few decent results. And then Bournemouth, you came down to us, and it was a 2-1 result in the end. Bournemouth had to come from behind, and that was the first time we came from behind. That's so far this season. Well, the first time we came from behind this season to win the game. What do you remember much of this match? And what have you?
It's not as such the match that I remember. It was, I gave up with the match after Brendan Rodgers said what he said at the end, and I know it word for word. He said it was too hot.
That's it.
He said at the end that they were tired and it was too hot.
It is Scorchio in Bournemouth.
I mean, and we've had that countless of times after games. He's come out with something dreadful. The Palace game, 31 shots to 3. What did he say? He said, we deserved something out of this game. I thought we were the better side.
Not what you want to be hearing.
No. So that's why I remember it. That's why I remember that match. That's all I do remember. Because it's been like it all season. Dreadful after dreadful performances. And then terrible excuses from a manager that's clearly just buying time. That's all he was doing, was buying time. In a way, I'm glad he's gone. He will go down with a good legacy at the club, don't get me wrong. One of the most successful, if not successful, managers we've ever had, outside of the one magical season with Claudio Ranieri. But tainted with some piss-poor post-match conferences and excuses and substitutions that still baffles me now.
Well, I know you've got to move on relatively soon because you've got your own preview that you're going to be doing for the game. Yeah. But before you go, would just like your thoughts on how you feel Bournemouth are doing this season. What you think the results of the match is going to be.
Well, you've beat some teams. It's not like us. You know, we beat Spurs and we've beat. Off the top of my head, we've beat Spurs and we've beat. Who else did we beat? Aston Villa. Did we beat Liverpool? I can't remember. Yeah. It's been that long ago. But you guys have done the same thing. You've beat some big teams. You're capable of coming out and winning games. But Saturday is literally relegation day for one of us. I really truly believe that. Yeah. One of us has to win on Saturday. No draw, no loss. One of us has got to win. Whoever loses is down. I think it's a 6-pointer, and I think Saturday is a deciding factor for one of us to go down. I don't want to put a prediction on it. I don't dare. Because everything I've said so far has gone the complete opposite way. And knowing my luck, I'll say, we're going to lose and we'll win, probably. But I'm not predicting anything because I don't dare. I don't dare.
All right. So you wouldn't even dare predict whether you're going to stay up?
No, because like I just said at the start of this show, we'll probably end up beating Liverpool or Man City, but lose to everyone around us and go down, because that's what Leicester do. We love breaking these stupid little fantasy records and stuff. We just do. What did you think of Leicester this season so far? Seriously, we're abysmal. Shocking.
Yeah, it's been one of the teams that I haven't paid as much attention to because I just assumed they'd get out of the malaise at some point, and then it just hasn't happened. A bit like West Ham.
Yeah, it's funny that, because so are the players are doing the same thing. They don't seem to realise that they're 19th in the table. It's funny that they're abysmal to it.
Oh dear. Well, yeah. I'll tell you what. I will let you go so that you can get on with your own preview and stop bringing this video down with your negativity.
No. Look, I'm just a bit worried.
I'm only having a joke.
I'm worried about my club going down.
Yeah,
with the amount of money that
exactly.
we've spent on the training facility and the amount of money that we've supposedly got in the bank, and as supposedly we're spending all this money on players' wages, how that affects the club going down. And that's my show coming up at 8:00. I'm asking the fans. It's a phone-in show. I want to know what people think if Leicester go down. How does it affect the club as a whole?
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Chappie. Do make sure that you do check him out on Monday nights, because I'm on with him on Beat the Drop. But fun. Also, which has been a great show so far. But also on his own personal channel and on his social medias, which we should have in the description below if you want to check out that information. But Chappie, thanks very much for joining us, and best of luck with your show.
Good luck.
Thanks, Chappie.
Trying to stay up, guys, because we all know what it's like at the minute.
Yeah,
we certainly do.
Yeah, it's a slog, isn't it? It is a slog.
Thank you for having me, though, lads.
Cheers.
Top man.
Thanks very much, mate. Top man.
Bye-bye.
Well, now that we've tackled at least the Leicester side of things, we're going to move on to looking at Bournemouth. We'll look at look at our last game in midweek against Brighton, and obviously look ahead to what we think is going to be happening in the Leicester game. Well, Matt, I wasn't able to catch very much of the Brighton game. I was able to see the majority of the first half, which from the sounds of things was definitely the half to watch in terms of the better performance. And there was a lot of things that encouraged me about that. But at the end of the day, it was a loss, and it was a home loss against a team that is not one of the so-called bigger sides, and as such, you definitely have to look at it as points dropped. But how do you feel overall about that game after the 2-0 loss at home to Brighton in midweek?
I think you've got to look at it with I tend to repeat myself here, but a bit of a degree of realism. They're a very, very good football team, well coached. Everybody knows their jobs, technically excellent. They're cohesive. They're a unit. They form partnerships. Their passing is concise. Their movement, I thought, was excellent throughout the game. And I thought we worked hard. We showed endeavour. We showed commitment. We always do. That's never in question. We ruffled a few feathers there. We tried to get about them. We tried to upset their flow, if you like, upset their rhythm. And we gave them a game. We had our moments. There's always key moments in football matches which will swing it one way or the other. That shot that we're looking at now, Traore with his hands on his head, that is the moment for me. He has to put the ball in the back of the net. That's a really pivotal moment just before half-time, if I remember correctly, 1-0 down in the game, looking to get back in it. He's got to score. It's a gilt-edged opportunity. He's got to put the ball and tuck it in the bottom corner. It really is. And we had other opportunities as well during the game. So first half, I thought, I wasn't too despondent. I wasn't too disappointed, bearing in mind the opposition that we're up against. Second half, for me, we weren't at it. We didn't come out all guns blazing. We showed it in fits and starts, but we looked disjointed. We couldn't string 3 passes together. Don was isolated up top. It all broke down in the final third. Ouattara was frustrating. Billing is in the wrong position in the holding role. Why? For me, Billing and Traore against Brighton and Hove Albion at home, a team that's going to dominate the football, which we knew they were going to do. You can't play both of those. It needed either Lewis Cook or Joe Rothwell to come in and try and get hold of the midfield. And when he brought his substitutions were questionable. I thought, John, when he brought Lewis Cook on and others, it was too late, too little, too late. Because that second half, they were slicing for us like a knife through butter at times. And I felt it was just a question of time how they didn't get the second goal. Neto made a few good saves. They missed some opportunities. It was poor finishing. But the passing and movement and the way they were slicing for us, Smithy was getting exposed at right back. Mitoma had him on toast. I don't lay the blame of the defeat at his door. Far from it. But he was getting exposed. He's stretching himself. But for me, Gary O'Neill did. I'm full of praise for him when he gets it right. Like when what he did on Saturday, he changed it at half time. And second half, we were so much better. But I thought Tuesday night, he got it wrong in the middle of the park. It was only Jeff Lerma. The middle of the park was overrun. We were dominated there. And that's where the game was won and lost for me. Like I say, Ouattara was frustrating for me, continues to frustrate. A lot of pace and a lot of promise and ability, but frustrating. Christie's Christie. You know what you're going to get from Ryan Christie, but end product was lacking. And Dom Solanke, he felt like he was isolated. And yeah, it was just one of those games where at the end of it, you thought, we're up against a good side here. We've been well beaten in the end. They got the second goal eventually. I thought it was, it would have come before that. But it says a lot, John, that we're 1-0 down and chasing the game, but yet they're the one more likely. Brighton were far more likely to get the second goal. And they finished the game far more strongly than we did. So disappointing because I felt a point would have been a good result. But let's make no bones about it. This Brighton side will probably finish in the top 6 this season. They're that good. They got a great coach, a great setup, some technically gifted, very, very good players, and they're a cohesive unit. They know what their style is. Everybody knows their job. So I was very impressed. It's the best Brighton side that I've been watching Brighton come to Dean Court for 35 years. Best Brighton side I've seen ever.
So. Something I'd love to hear from people more in the chat is sort of how people are feeling after that game, because I think that it was somewhat a performance of 2 halves for Bournemouth in that one in terms of how they were able to press Brighton and make chances in the first half, which seemed to sort of die away in the second. But there's some very mixed responses from what I've seen amongst the Twitter fan base, and I think that there have been some that have been a lot more measured from that game. I've seen quite a few responses from people of varying levels, of which I know people, and some that have been very disappointed and felt utterly defeated after that game, and then others that have found the opportunity to really try and dig into specific players. And I feel that Adam Smith has come in for a lot of criticism, but a decent chunk of amount of people on Twitter. Now, obviously, that doesn't represent the fan base by any means. It's probably, I don't know, less than 10% of the fan base of Bournemouth or even on Twitter. But it's an interesting one to catch. And there have been stories that I've heard about him swearing at, I believe it was the main stand. Apparently, some of possibly one of his interviews has apparently come off quite poorly. And I think there's been a lot of seemingly a lot of reason for people to just decide that they're going to scapegoat him for almost every goal that we can see, certainly over the last 2 games. And it's getting a bit ridiculous, I find, and certainly far from productive. It just reminds me of when Lloyd Kelly was getting booed when he was taking the ball earlier in the season before he had his long-term out with injury. I don't know. I'd love to hear people people to put their comments, whether it's currently during the live video or afterwards, to generate discussion on this. But what have you thought about this sort of targeting of Adam Smith, Matt?
Yeah, grossly unfair. I mean, Smithy's been a fantastic servant for this football club, an unbelievable player. I mean, he started off at Tottenham. We all know his story. Dropped down to League One. And he moved up with us through the divisions, and he was comfortable at Premier League level. He'd adapted his game. He'd grown his game that much under Eddie, and developed his game that he'd become a regular and a decent Premier League right back. He's not getting any younger. He's still got plenty of years left in him. But I feel that maybe a bit like Simon Francis in the end, a bit like a few of our players in the Premier League. They're stretching themselves. Steve Cook, another one. They're stretching every sinew to make sure that they do their job. And I felt that was the case with Smithy. You can never question his effort, his commitment, his heart, his character, any of that, and most of the time his ability as well. So to start making him a scapegoat is out of order, just like it was with Lloyd Kelly, just like it was for me with Gary O'Neill, just like it was with any individual you're going to hone in on. Because we all have to be in this together. And I'll keep saying it, we have to have a dose of realism that goes in with it. We are where we are. We've just been promoted. The investment's gone into the squad, but this is going to take time. We need stability as a football club. We need continuity. We need unity. So I don't agree with it at all. No, I'm not for it at all. And I'm pretty sure Adam Smith will. He's the best right back, by the way, that we've got at the club at the moment. If you look at him, Jack Stacey and Ryan Fredericks, in my opinion, if you had all 3 lined up and said, who would you pick? I would go with Adam Smith every time. I still think he's the most experienced, the most athletic, the one who stays fit the most, and the most Premier League savvy right back that we've got. So yeah, don't buy into it at all. Not for it. And I wouldn't be against any of these players. A lot of them young players that are developing their game. I'll keep saying it again. The effort and the commitment is never in question. Never has been from minute 1 this season. I've not seen it dip at all. What we've got to be realistic about is the fact that what division we're in and where we're at as a football club at the moment. We got relegated. You look at Brighton 4 years ago. We went to the Amex and stuffed them 5-0, and we were worlds apart. That day it was men against boys, and that's how the tables have turned. Where we've lost our momentum. We've been relegated. We've lost our talisman in Eddie Howe. We've lost a raft of players and we're rebuilding again. And we are where we are. If we stay up this season, it still will be a fantastic, monumental achievement by everybody at this football club. So let's get it into perspective. And the booing of Smith is, grossly out of order.
So there were some other interesting comments that O'Neill made. I think it was after the Brighton game, but it may well have been before the game, to do with players. Certainly comments about commitment. I think there was a decent amount made of the fact that Moore wasn't even on the bench for this most recent game. And I do think that, as much as he has a decent goals to game record, we do struggle when we play with him instead of Solanke. But as a plan B, I don't think there's really much better options in the league than Kiefer Moore to bring on late in the game. He was out of the squad along with Chris Mepham. We haven't seen Stacey for a while, but it's clear that he's third choice right back behind a few other defenders as well. So it's not too much of a surprise to not see him on the bench. But there's certainly been there's been something certainly read into the fact that O'Neill made comments that basically seem to imply that you need to be focusing on the team rather than yourselves, and certain players need to decide what they want to be doing. Now, I think it's a bit easy to just immediately point at every player that's not made the match day 18 and just go, well, you're not working hard enough for the team, or you're not doing enough in training, whatever. But it is a bit odd that we're not ignoring Jordan Zamora's contract disputes. It's a bit odd that we're not including Kiefer Moore in the squad at all. And you do wonder, is O'Neill able to do enough to make sure that the squad stays in as much harmony as you'd like to think he can? Or perhaps you could even look at it as maybe you've got a few players along the likes of Moore and Mepham that keep coming into the squad and then dropping out as soon as someone comes back, and are just deciding, I'm just not going to get regular game time here, so I just want to be out of here as soon as possible. I mean, it's the thing is, I do understand the position as a professional footballer that you want to be playing football. I understand that, but at the same time, you're contracted to the club, and I would, if they're not putting in the work in training, if they're not showing their commitment, then I'd rather they be being in the stands than on the bench. But not having Kiefer Moore as an option at all may be something that we regret. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, look, I think you all know my views on Kiefer. Kiefer Moore's not the future of this football club. He's a championship player for me that was signed for the purpose of making sure we got over the line and got promoted to the Premier League. And, there was no long-term vision in the signing of Kiefer Moore, but he's already paid back his transfer fee by helping us to do that in the last season. Yeah, he's a great plan B. I do take your point, Kirk. Jon.
I'm doing my job then, at least.
Massive insult. I'm so sorry. But I take your point, Jon. He should have been on the bench, because we probably did need a plan B. And we more than one occasion this season, we perhaps could have done with him, and none more so than maybe Tuesday night when you're chasing the game at 1-0 down and things have gone a bit stale and you're running out of sort of answers, really. So why we don't know what goes on behind the scenes, Jon, do we, like you've touched upon? And there'll be a reason privately if you ask Gary, why is Kiefer Moore not on why is Chris Mepham not on what is the reason that these players aren't on the bench, at least? Because it was strange that he brought on, I thought it was strange enough maybe that he brought on Brooks. I didn't think it was maybe the time or the place to bring David Brooks on, who looked a bit like a fish out of water, not quite up to speed fitness-wise, when you're chasing the game against such a competitive and well-drilled side as Brighton. I thought was that the right move? And also bringing on Zabania, I know Senesi took a knock, but bringing on Zabania, who clearly is not match fit either, when you'd have thought, if Chris Mepham's, that was tailor-made for Mepham stepping in there. And you saw with the second goal, right at the end, the sucker punch, that second goal at the end, it was just shambolic, wasn't it, the defending? I know Adam Smith was involved in that, but he wasn't alone. There was, three defenders that just watched him sail through, and Neto just said, go on then, stick it in the corner. It was laughable, really. So Zabani didn't cover himself in glory there, but he's obviously not quite match fit. So what is going on behind the scenes, I don't know. Look, I'll always give Gary O'Neill credit because I want to get behind him. I want to support him. I think, I think we've got to have continuity. He's done a lot of good for the football club. You can't fault his effort, his commitment, and some of his decision making, some of his management has been good. You can see a potential manager there. So I'm going to get behind him and support him. I don't, this is not the time or the place to be changing manager. And once we made that decision and made the commitment to go with O'Neill, you have to stick with him. But I'll also give him criticism, and I felt he got it wrong again on Tuesday night. I really did, in terms of the way we set up the team selection, the substitutions, some of his decisions in game. I wasn't too impressed with. So he's learning on the job. We know that he's proved that he can do it, but. We've got 9. All I will say, Jon, now is that we've got 9 games left, and 6 of them are against sides in our mini league, which poses its own problem because against the likes of Brighton, they're going to come out at you a bit more, and you can perhaps exploit things on the break a little bit, and they're going to be a bit more open. Some of these teams, might come to Dean Court, even at home, might set up a bit more pragmatic, and we're not very good, are we, at breaking teams down? That's we've all gone on record and said that is a concern. That being said, we're all desperate for points, so you just don't know how the game's going to manifest on the day, do you? You don't know what's going to happen, and I just feel like I was so despondent after Tuesday night, John, after we lost, walked away from the stadium thinking, oh, that wasn't great. The second half was poor. We looked poor at times. We looked disjointed. We looked a championship team. And then you go and watch West Ham at home to Newcastle last night, and it gives you heart again, because you think, you watch Southampton at West Ham, you watch all these teams, and none of them are any good, are they? None of them are showing any consistency, quality. They're defending shocking at times. They can't score goals for love nor money. So I just feel like we're all in the same boat, and it's going to be the ones that, like I said earlier to the Leicester lad, I think there won't be 9 teams in it on the final day. There'll probably be, one might get cut adrift. Hopefully that'll be Southampton. Sorry, Saints fans, but
probably.
Yeah, we hope it's you. And then there'll be 2 spaces up for grabs, and maybe 4 teams, I think, 4 or 5 going for it. So a couple are going to pull away, but it's going to be the teams that can just show that quality consistently, and pull a couple of results together. And I don't know who that is at the moment, John, to be honest. We're in the mix and we're still fighting at the moment. So it's all to play for, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick message here from Stu. Surely starting 2 players who were observing Ramadan was basic error. Why not bring them off the bench to get at least carb load and be ready? I think the carb load point of it is absolutely right in terms of an evening game, but thankfully we don't have to worry about evening games apart from Southampton. I think is the only one we've got left. So, for the most part, starting at 3:00, most of them should be a little bit more. All the players in observing Ramadan, but certainly for us, it's Ouattara and Traore, I believe. They've already played 3 key games during Ramadan. We beat Liverpool, I believe. Was that before Ramadan or after Ramadan? But either way, it's it is a legitimate question, but it is a question for every team in the division, and every manager has to go with what they think. So, and to be honest, it's not a question I'm qualified to answer, but it is an interesting one to at least discuss at times, and I hope there is decent discussion about it. However, we are going to move on because we've looked back. And it's about time we push forward and look positively to the next game. And as Matt's quite rightly said, we have a number of games left against teams in this bottom 9 mini league. The table's tight. It's really, really tight. There are 4 teams that are on the same number of points as us, 27 points. In fact, I'll bring up the table shortly. Leicester is a game we should be looking to win. It's as much as the name itself and what you would have expected from Leicester over the season, whatever you think of that, that is not them this season. And we've already beaten them. We've got a chance of doing the double. They are down a couple of important players at a bare minimum. There was a question earlier on saying that apparently they'd heard Dan Short saying that he heard Maddison is injured. Maddison has just been playing with a hip injury for about 18 months, is what Chappie was telling us. So I don't know whether he's actually out or whether he'll just be playing regularly. Kirk has already put together a lineup that we've got predicted lineup here. Matt, looking at the lineup there, that's basically the team that beat Fulham, I believe, for the most part. Would you say that's probably the right one, or do you think that Ouattara's performances have maybe looked quite under? I do think he has been quite under par the last couple of games. Do you see maybe Chrissy maintaining his position? Do you see Lewis Cook coming in instead of Rothwell on this one? Does Traore deserve to be dropped and Billy can get put back into the number 10 spot? There are options here, but what do you think of that particular lineup?
Yeah, I think the question marks, John, would be firstly whether Tavernier is going to be fit enough to start. Is a big question mark. If he is, then he goes into the team, no question, no doubt about it. But it's whether he'll be fit enough to, put the shirt on and get out there from minute 1. Even if we could take him off after 60, 65 minutes and maybe do it that way, could be an option. Ouattara, the jury is out. I mean, yeah, there's another question mark. Do you pull him out because he's flattered to deceive a little bit in recent games? I think he's great potential in the lad, great pace, like I say. His end product is he's not delivering at the moment. He's frustrating me massively. So you've got a couple of options. You either bring Jadon Anthony back in, or you stick with Ryan Christie. And for me, I would probably go with Christie. I mean, he played Christie. Christie's got to play on his natural side for me. which would be the right-hand side. And he was swapping him around I get what he was trying to do, but he was swapping the wingers around, and there's no sort of consistency there. Christie didn't know where he was in the end, I don't think. But I might just go for Christie and leave again. If you bring in Tavernier off after 65 minutes, Dango's a great option to bring on, isn't he? And Traore, they're great options to bring off the bench with the pace and ability that they've perhaps got. And the other question mark would be the Rothwell and Cook situation, because I think one of them has to start. Billing has to be pushed. I know he's done that role, that holding role in recent months, and he's done it well on occasions. Tuesday night wasn't one of those occasions that he did it well. I think he has to be pushed further forward to support Dom, and either Joe Rothwell or Lewis Cook comes in. For me, Rothwell didn't do too much wrong. He was starting to gain a little bit of momentum and begin to get settled in the team. So, maybe Joe Rothwell for me comes in as well. So we're not a million miles away, I don't think, with that lineup, John. No.
Yeah, and a couple of interesting ones you talk about there with regards to possibly even Anthony coming in. You mentioned Tavernier. Yeah, it was an interesting one that he didn't start against Brighton. I do think I do look back at that and think that I think that's O'Neill being sensible as a manager of his player, in terms of, because he came back in against brains failed me, but he came back in for one game and then was out again for a month.
Wolves. Was it Wolves?
That was it, yes, because he had no, he didn't provide the assist. So he scored. He scored against Wolves. He scored the goal against Wolves, and then he was out for another month. And the guy scored 4 goals and got 4 assists in his last 6 appearances before Brighton, where he came off the bench, and obviously so that would be 4 and 4 from 7. That's he's been so important for us. But you've got the option of Jayden Anthony on the left. The issue I have with having Jayden Anthony on the left is that he doesn't get any attacking support from Lloyd Kelly. My issue at the moment with having Lloyd Kelly at left back is that there is nothing attacking wise coming down that side if you play Lloyd Kelly there, and because he doesn't get forward at all. It's clearly it's been a clear pattern from O'Neill that either the left back pushes on, which has been Zamora most of the season, or the right back pushes on, which now that Kelly's playing a left back who is a centre back, you've got Adam Smith is trying to get forward a bit more, but he doesn't do it as anywhere near as effectively as Jordan Zamora. It's a tough one. I do think Rothwell's been good, but I do think he made a big mistake in the Fulham game. He didn't track Reed at all for that goal. And I do really like Cook. I just think he's just got that quality on the ball to make a pass and can beat a man. But I have been impressed with Rothwell's close control and ability to beat the press. He's very press resistant, just like Cook, but he's impressed me in that regard. Number 10 is so important, and I do think that a lot of people were very frustrated that Billing wasn't playing in the 10. I think that Billing is just shown how impactful he can be from that position, that people just can't see him anywhere else. I do think he's perfectly capable of playing in that double pivot. Heck, when he played against I think it was against Fulham, he still got the most tackles in the squad when he was playing in number 10. He got 6 tackles. He made the other 18s league table for that game week. He's so important for us going forward, though. You just can't drop him back anymore. He's got to be number 10 for me. And I think you bang on, John. I think the one thing I noticed on Tuesday night was the partnerships down the flanks are just not there on either side, really, particularly Lloyd Kelly. I didn't think we'd miss maybe Zamora as much as we are offensively, maybe not defensively, but offensively. We just didn't have any link up down either flanks at times, and it all broke down far too easy. Whereas Brighton had those partnerships, they had those link ups, and they were dominating us. But the key was, of course, that they were dominating the midfield, so they were able to win that battle and then spread the balls wide and get their fullbacks bombing on. Because we lost the midfield battle, and we certainly can't afford to do that on Saturday. If James Maddison's missing, that would be huge, because he's the threat for me. Even if he's 70% fit, he's the one that I would worry about out of the Leicester side, that could cause us some major problems. But if he's missing, then that would be huge. That would be huge. That could be game defining and even season defining if he's out. Yeah, that would be absolutely huge for us. I'm not entirely sure whether he is. If he is, then that is absolutely massive, because I think it's been clear Leicester so far really have very little going forward at all if they don't have Maddison in the side. Question here from Samuel McNeil. Don't know if you agree. I think if we lose against Leicester, I think we are done. What are your thoughts? I don't really want to think about it, to be honest. But what I would say is that I don't think we would be completely out of it if we lost to Leicester. I think it wouldn't be great because obviously Leicester are below us at the moment. But because we've still got Leeds at home, West Ham at home, Southampton away, on top of this, those are the three fixtures that you're looking at and going, we win those four. We win three out of those four. I think we stay up. So I think you've got Leicester away, Southampton away, West Ham at home, and Leeds at home. Those four fixtures, I think if you win three out of those four, you stay up. And bear in mind, we've obviously still got Chelsea at home, who we've got a pretty good, decent record against. We've got Man United at home, who may be on the beach by that point, depending on what position they're in, because that's penultimate game of the season. And we've got Everton away last game, which we did that last time. Admittedly, we won that and went down. But we did that on our last season in the Premier League. So I don't think it's quite an all or nothing, but it is huge. And I think for Leicester, if Leicester lose this, I think they are down. I think the confidence will drain so much from them. What do you think, Matt?
I think, Sam, that it's a great question. I think psychologically it would be very, very damaging if we lost the game. Of course, we won't be out of it if we lose, but it's going to be. We then go to Tottenham, who we know them, not in great shape at the moment, but still a big ask to go there and win the football match. I think it'd be a massive psychological blow if we lose at Leicester on Saturday, having lost Tuesday night against Brighton. That would be my worry. It would then put so much pressure on those games that you've just touched upon, John. We'd have to win 3 of them. We've got Palace away as well. It just puts so much pressure on those games. So for me, we don't want to be losing on Saturday. We win the game on Saturday, like you rightly say, John. It puts Leicester in a very, very difficult position, and Southampton as well. They're home to Man City, so we could, it could be a massive, massive win if we can get the 3 points. But defeat would be psychologically damaging. I would want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So shortly, we're going to ask for your match predictions. Before we do that, let's just take a if I can find the thing. There we go. Let's take a quick cheeky break and then we'll be back to talk about predictions. So, this is how things currently look in the Oh, that's the EFL, not the EPL. My bad. Let's take that off and let's get that off. We do not want to be down there yet. That's the problem when you put in a typo. We put in the EFL table, not EPL. This is how the table stacks up at the moment. Obviously, as I mentioned, we are on 27 points, level with 3 other sides down there. We have played 1 game more. Most of us have played 1 game more than West Ham, but everyone else has played 29 games, which means we've got 9 and West Ham have got 10. Not that based on their most recent result, West Ham's extra game will mean all that much, which I think is against Man United or Man City anyway. But yeah, it's a perilous position, as we mentioned before. With regards to the actual matches coming up, this is what's going on this weekend. So we've got Man United, Everton, Aston Villa, Forest, which is a huge game for Forest. Got Brentford, Newcastle, which should be a fun game. Fulham, West Ham, Wolves, Chelsea, Tottenham, Brighton. Our game, obviously, Southampton, Man City, Leeds United, Palace, and then the big one Sunday evening is Liverpool, Arsenal. Anything that jumps out there that you'll be keeping, maybe even watching this weekend?
Yeah, I think you touched on it, John. The Villa Forest game there is massive. Not just for Forest now, but for Villa as well. They're on such a good run that they're on the hunt for European football now, and I think they really believe that they can get in those European spots. They're on a hell of a run under Emery. They're not conceding too many goals. They're scoring goals and they're winning football matches. And we went there a few weeks ago, and I thought we'd get something. Because we always do there generally, but we were well beaten in the end. So that's a big one, because I think Forest are in a little bit of free fall. Their home form was keeping them afloat, but they've stopped winning games at home now. Their away record's awful. So we need that to continue. We could do West Ham as well. Look vulnerable to me. When the pressure's on, you've got 60,000 fans behind you at the London Stadium, and their away support. They looked dreadful defensively last night at the very least, and they're by no means out of the chase. And also be interesting to see what happens at Molineux, because Wolves are another side, John, aren't they? That they're just not really in any sort of form at the moment. They don't look good at all. Lampard's gone back to Chelsea for the third time. But it's what it'll do is create. I think it will create a bounce, and I think Chelsea go to Molineux and win could be massive, because it pulls Wolves right into it. Saints Man City, you assume that's going to be an away win, but it never quite works like that. And the Saints have already beaten City Cup this season, and they got a habit of just pulling results out of nowhere sometimes, Southampton, when they're written off. They've done it year after year. I remember even when they were at the old Dell, they were always fighting relegation, and somewhere along the line they just pull a result out of nowhere against one of the big boys. And I'm hoping that's Saturday is not the day for them to do it. So I'll be keeping my eye on all of those games. Leeds Palace as well is a bit of a 6-pointer. But I say it every time, John, it's our game that's the most important. This is a crucial game. This is a 6-pointer and a half as well. And, what a huge game it is at the weekend. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely is. Everyone, please get your predictions in the chat. I'll ask for yours shortly, Matt. We've got Alan's going with a 2-2. We've got Kirk chirping in. Hello, Kirk. He's going for a 2-1 victory. Chris is going for a 3-1. Mark's going for a 1-0. Please, if anyone's wants to put in their predictions, please put them in the chat. We will show them all. And we've also got a message here from, I hope that's not the Jaden Anthony, because if it is, that's a hell of a get. Moore and Meps came back a day late from playing and then celebrating Wales 4 points. That's why. Oh, okay, that's fair enough. Well, I say it's fair enough. I mean, it's fair enough that they weren't in the matchday squad if they were sort of looked at as maybe they've taken their country over their club. Maybe we've got 2 Gareth Bales on our hands. It goes Wales, Golf, Bournemouth. Hopefully not. But then we've also got Cameron here with a 2-1 prediction. A lot of people expecting wins. We do have a draw as well from Alan, and I think that there'll be a lot of positive. Well, I think there'll be a lot of people expecting us to get a win in this game because of how Leicester have been, because that Bournemouth have to really be getting a win from this game to give themselves the best chance of staying up. How are you feeling, Matt?
Yeah, I agree, John. I think this is a game that they have to win. They'll see it that they need to win this football match, which works in our favour. We said it at the start of the show, earlier on in the show, didn't we? That when teams come out with us, that we're much better. And I think they will have to come out as the home team. The home fans will be expectant. And they're just desperate for the points, aren't they? And I think that goes for us. I really do. And I think I'm always going to be positive. So I'm going to say we win the game. I'm going to say 3-1. I'm really going for it here because there is goals in us. I think if Tavernier starts, that could be massive, because I think he's the key. I really do, to us scoring goals. He proved it against Fulham. He's proved it a few times this season now. And if we can get Billing further forward as well, and we go with that lineup similar to the one we predicted, I think it's there for us. I think we will have to pick our moments, but I think they're low on confidence. There seems to be a bit of unrest going, a bit of a shambles going on behind the scenes there at the moment, as highlighted by our Leicester guest earlier, who was obviously far from happy, not exactly in the most positive mood. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 Bournemouth because we desperately need it, and I think we're capable of it. And Leicester are just not firing at the moment. I still think they get out of it. I really do, because I think they've got enough quality. If they keep Maddison fit and others as well, Tillemans and Ndidi and all those other players, Harvey Barnes and everything they've got in Nacho, and I still think that they get themselves out of it, but after Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Matt's gone for the famous 3-1. We'd have some delighted fans of the channel with that prediction if that comes in. As for myself, I think similarly. I think that it's a game that we should be expecting to win. And I think under different circumstances, you would be looking at that and going, a draw wouldn't be too bad. And I do think that if we did draw this game, particularly if we had to come back from behind like we did in the reverse fixture, I don't think it's the end of the world at all with that one. I do think that losing is the worst. Is obviously, well, no thing, Sherlock. Of course, losing would be the worst outcome, but we surely can't look at this as like, if we don't win this game, we're down, because it's just not that kind of game yet. A result is vital, but I do think a win is very much possible, and I think that there's a lot more confidence flowing through this squad than there is Leicester's, and I think there's been a lot more form from Bournemouth recently. I mean, before the Brighton game, we were in our mini league of 9, we were top of the form table with 3 wins and 3 losses. So I do think that we have a very, very good chance of winning. Last few predictions that have come in, we've got Wing. We've got our first loss predicted there by Wing. That's an interesting one. 3-2 Leicester. It says there'll be a bounce for them after Rodgers gone, and O'Neill will be inept as at Villa. Well, interesting one, but I do think that if they had a bounce, they would have got it against Villa, and I don't think they did have much of one. And then lastly, Sam, he's gone for 2-0. You know what? A clean sheet, I think, is definitely possible. I'm going to match a couple of the others. I'm going to go with a 2-1. I think that seems to be where a lot of our victories have come this season. I'm not 100% certain that we'll keep a clean sheet by any means, but I do think we've definitely got enough to outscore them. Not that I think it will become any kind of a shootout game, but there you go. That's my prediction. Just as a last one before we go, as scrolling across the screen, it does say there to our 1+4K YouTube channel. Kirk let me know earlier today we were 8 away from 1.5K. So if you are not subscribed yet, if you're coming here from another channel, another fan of a different team, please do hit the subscribe button. Please do help us on our journey to keep growing the channel. And if you have enjoyed this preview tonight, then please do hit the like button as well. It really does help with keeping us positive on the algorithm and showing our content to as many new faces as possible. But that is our preview for tonight. Looking forward to the Leicester game on Saturday. For those of you going, I wish you all the best. I hope you get there safe. Hope there's no train issues that are keeping you from having a safe journey if you do go by public transport. But thank you very much for joining us. And thank you, Matt, for joining me on this preview.
Yeah, thanks, John. Pleasure as always. Really enjoyed it. Thanks to everybody that's contributed as well and continues to contribute. It's always great to see your views in the chat as well. It's great to see, and let's hope we can go there on Saturday, get ourselves a result, which would be massive in terms of our survival bid, wouldn't it? So fingers crossed and up the Cherries.
Yes, all fingers crossed, all toes crossed for a positive result against Leicester. But it is one that I think we're all looking forward to, and we're all hoping for something to take back home from that result. But until the next video, I hope you have a great night, great rest of your day whenever you watch this, and we'll see you soon. Up the Cherries.
Up the Cherries.